Hey everyone, this is Blake, and I'm here today to show you what could be the most interesting music production computer that I've looked at in a very long time. Let's talk about it. Those of you who have watched previous videos on my channel likely know that I'm a big fan of using relatively inexpensive hardware to create music. Sure, you can throw a sample library at a multi-thousand-dollar computer and get great results. But what I find way more interesting is running those same libraries on machines that are relatively inexpensive and at first glance, not what most people would consider to be a music production machine. In this box is one of those. This is a mini PC from Beelink, and you are able to find this model for around or under 400 US dollars. Inside, we find the user manual and accessories box containing the power adapter and a few HDMI cables, which are nice bonuses to be included. Next, we find the machine itself, and the form factor is really pretty cool, as I noted while I was unboxing it. This is crazy small. Oh, wow. In this small, nondescript enclosure is a Ryzen 7 5800H and 32 gigabytes of DDR4 memory. For price to performance, this is one of the more compelling pre-built devices I've personally seen. Next, I place the user manual in its proper location and begin the process of connecting everything. This consisted of connecting the power brick, the display, and audio hardware that's usually connected to my Mac Mini. There are 3 USB 3 ports, 1 USB 2 port, and a USB-C port on the front along with 2 HDMI ports. Since most of my hardware is connected using USB hubs, connecting everything was quite simple. Finally, I press the power button and the PC begins booting for the first time. Next, it's just a matter of going through the Windows setup process until we finally reach the desktop. One of the first things that I do when using a new pre-built is to check Task Manager for anything that's running that looks like it shouldn't be. In this case, everything seems to be good. I also check the activation status to make sure that Windows is properly activated. In this case it is, and we've actually got Windows 11 Pro, which is a nice to have. There really doesn't appear to be much on here other than a standard Windows 11 install. This is good. Going to the Performance tab of Task Manager, we can really see what kind of hardware we are working with. The 5800H is an 8-core 16-thread CPU, more commonly seen in laptops, although you do see it in smaller PCs like this. And we have 32 gigabytes of 3200 megahertz memory on board. Some of this is reserved for the onboard graphics, so we have about 29 gigabytes of it usable. We also have an included 500 gigabyte Nvme SSD with space for an extra 2.5-inch SATA drive that we can add if we want. Next, I run Cinebench R23, just to check what kind of score we get. There's way more to performance than numbers from a synthetic benchmark, but it does at least give one number to compare between machines. This little machine impressed me. A score of 9,354 beats the 7,796 points recorded by my M1 Mac by about 1,600 points. My VE Pro server, which runs an Intel 10700K, records around 10,000 points in this benchmark. So this little machine is trading blows with that much larger machine. It is worth noting that the 10700K is a few generations old now, but I still find that impressive. Next, I install Studio One, Cinematic Rooms Pro, and 3 sample libraries: VSL Synchron Prime, East West Hollywood Orchestra Strings, and East West Hollywood Orchestra Percussion. I chose these mainly because the iLok licenses are easy to move to different machines, and I knew that East West Hollywood Strings could push the system pretty hard, depending on which mics I chose to load. Here are a couple of audio examples from the Beelink where I'm trying different patches and different techniques to load the CPU and see how it handles it. Next, I just start composing. This was me trying to give this machine a real-world test. I didn't set out to write anything spectacular, just something so I could answer the question, did the machine itself get in the way of my work? The answer is no, it didn't. There was a bit of friction because I'm not as familiar with Studio One, but that's my fault, not the machine's fault. And in the end, I still came up with a 20-second fanfare of sorts using Synchron Prime and Hollywood strings and percussion. In this case, Hollywood Strings was actually using 3 mic positions for each instrument, which really pushed the CPU utilization and the RAM usage. I've seen some machines choke trying to do this, but the Beelink actually was able to handle it, and this was all at a 128 sample buffer size, which is pretty impressive. We also had plenty of RAM to spare. All in all, I'm really impressed with this little machine, especially for the sub $400 price point that I was able to get it at. For the time being, I think I'm planning on using it as like a secondary machine, so I can kind of play around with composing more with Windows. I'm not really ready to ditch Mac and Logic Pro yet, but getting performance like this for this price and in a form factor that's so cool, it's pretty compelling, actually. So I'm going to play around with it a bit more. You know, maybe some more experimentation, maybe try to write something a little bit longer and something, you know, with more tracks and stuff in it. Maybe put another SSD in it so I can put more libraries on it. So really, I think that about does it. Just wanted to kind of present this because I got it. Someone at work told me about them, and I went and found them, and I liked what I saw, so I got it, and I've been playing around with it. As far as I can tell, this is actually a decent little machine to use for doing virtual orchestration. So if you're maybe looking for a secondary machine, I've even thought this could actually be a pretty cool like VE Pro server in its own right if you upgraded the RAM. I think it can support up to 64 gigabytes, so that's pretty cool. So that'll probably do it for this video. I really just kind of wanted to, you know, give my thoughts on this little machine. If you have any questions about it, please put them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. But again, thanks for watching, and until next time, bye for now.